I've been enjoying the collaborations. So where I can work with a partner on a way to bring a different topic or a different point of view. I've had a few episodes with a group that's for women in insurance, and we've been talking about tougher subjects that are affecting women. So ageism was my most recent one. And before that, we talked about neurodiversity. So it's bringing awareness to topics that people might not know are affecting women around them. And for me, that's another, like a different value add that I can bring to the conversation is like, let's just talk about what this is and how it's affecting women we're working with.
Welcome to the brndBrief podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and key strategies that are driving brand growth. This podcast is powered by brndMethod Media Group, and I'm your host, Kelly Kelly. Today's guest is Megan Bell, creator and host of Insure Podcast, a platform dedicated to celebrating and elevating women shaping the insurance industry. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly.
So let's maybe start with a little bit of background on your professional role in the industry, as well as this project, Insure Podcast.
Sure. So I am just about 8 years into the insurance industry. I work as head of marketing for what's called a managing general agent in Rhode Island Falvey Insurance Group. And we specialize in coverage for businesses who are transporting or storing goods throughout the supply chain. So it's a very specialized pocket of the industry. And in the insurance industry, we're definitely starting to see a shift in leadership where women are definitely taking on more roles, but it's still very common to see that women occupy most of the entry level or service oriented roles. So the project that I have that's personal Insure Podcast came to be because I started realizing, specifically during COVID, how many women were leaving their careers, whether it was in insurance or not. And that really started to weigh on me, especially because I was experiencing, my own kind of struggles balancing both at home and work. And really what I wanted to do was just talk about women that are doing amazing things, doing the work behind the scenes that you might not even know are there. There's so many amazing stories to tell, and I just wanted a platform to be able to do that.
So your Women at the Helm series evolved into Insure Podcasts, creating a super powerful platform for women in insurance. What specific strategies have you used to build this engaged community across different touch points, from live events to weekly podcasts? Maybe a story behind a key initiative that you found very, very successful.
So the Women at the Helm series was in-person events, and those were locally where I am in the state of Rhode Island. And because we're such a small state, there's only so many people you can reach physically. There were some events that we were able to host in different locations. One was in New York City, and it was in partnership with another organization. We also hosted a session at a broader event for Falvey that kind of kicked off a conference. And that's really where the broader reach to the industry was found. And I started to interact with people and kind of expand. So I think those collaborations were extremely powerful for the kind of start of this even existing. And then the other thing that I found super powerful has been social media. I've been building an organic reach through just my personal LinkedIn page. I've had a lot of back and forth on whether or not to have a company page for the podcast. And from my reading, it sounded a lot like the company pages don't get as much engagement anymore. The person behind that, and I've gotten advice on both sides, and I've decided to stay with the path of keeping it with me. And that's really because I want it to be personal. It's not a corporation. It's a project of mine. And so I want to kind of stay the path. And I think that organic approach has been successful, just really trying to build that community from the ground up, not be super uber focused on numbers. I'm not putting any paid media behind it. It's really all about that genuine connection, which is really at the heart of what the project is.
And I think that's a really great point. I mean, as we are headed into, everything being pushed in terms of AI and how you can scale this and scale that, and you can shrink this team and shrink. I get all of that. I do find value in AI, but I do think we're going to start to see a swing towards wanting to see something real and authentic, and that being the standout as opposed to maybe not the fastest or most scalable, depending, but certainly just more genuine and interesting because it, like you said, it's backed by a personal mission and it's not necessarily being optimized for intense scale, like almost everything else, right?
Yeah, and I think that all has to do with what your end goal is. Like for
Right.
me, this is very much because it's a passion project. My goal isn't monetization. My goal is to have these stories told and reach people. And so I think that's also the huge thing is that it isn't about me. A lot of people they are trying to sell themselves as a coach or they're trying to sell themselves or a service they're offering, which is completely valid and that's part of their business model. And that's where I always come back to for me there isn't the business behind it really. So that's really the difference for me.
Yeah. And even still, even as a passion project, it sounds like you've put on your hat, your business hat, and said there does need to be a strategy. Even if we're not attempting to monetize, I do want to approach this with a strategy in order to deliver the best outcome, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, that's the learning of consistency, especially with content. I dedicated myself to doing weekly episodes at the beginning. And because of the way I am, I felt like I couldn't go back from that. So in hindsight, I'm like, I could have scaled this up to every week, but I've stuck to that and I'm proud of that. And I also am consistent in terms of the posting strategy. That's been huge for me. I am not always and haven't always been fully comfortable with that because a personal brand is definitely something you have to learn and kind of figure out like what is resonating with people. But I think with that sticking to a schedule, always having something posted, ready to go, and it's relatable and it's again not self-serving. That's always kind of the mission behind my strategy.
Now, I want to talk about your background a little bit because I think it helps to create more context just to speak to your experience and your passion for this industry and for women in this industry for sure. So your background spans natural products and consumer goods before you even entered insurance. I would be curious to know how have those consumer focused marketing insights influenced your approach within the B2B marketing insurance world, and what lessons from your CPG days are still applicable to your role now?
I love that question because I do think that that's something that I love that I've been able to bring to insurance, especially which is unique to my role at Valvy. Valvy is a 30-year-old company. They're celebrating 30 years in September, but they're very entrepreneurial and open to the ideas of approaching things differently. I came in as the first official marketing hire and was able to kind of develop a personality for the brand. They focus on relationships. People know the actual individuals who work at our company first. They know that like Valvy is this person I have. It's my underwriter, it's my claims rep. And so for me, it was like, let's socialize that. Like, let's humanize the brand and lean into it because that's our strongest asset. And so I think coming from consumer background, I did a lot on social media and customer service where I was the person responding to the consumer directly, which is different than what our model is at Falvey, where you interact with a broker. And I think those lessons, even in the natural product space, a lot of it had to do with sensitive issues. One of the companies I worked for was natural foods. And so that was a lot of moms who had kids that were allergic to different ingredients in foods or people that couldn't eat certain ingredients for a lifestyle choice. And those are all sensitive issues. And then another role I had in the natural product space was a women's fertility wellness, like pregnancy supplement. And so for that, that's an extremely important time of a woman's life. They're going through all sorts of changes, especially if they're having their first child or are having trouble conceiving. So I think all of those like direct emotional experiences that I was able to kind of have as part of my strategy and approach have really helped with the empathy factor. And like I mentioned before, the humanization, there is always a person on the other side. And I always try to keep that front and center. And so I think with the podcast, it's just become even further like pulling that thread all the way through of just like people first, relationships first, empathy. And especially in a time when I think like you're kind of one side or the other. Like you want to be, I don't know, I want to be on the right side of that as far as we should be kind and we should be caring for others.
Yeah. And I think sometimes in the B2B world and on the agency side, that's usually who our target is. It can be difficult to get that buy-in from, senior leadership. And like, we have to humanize this, guys. Like, we can't be speaking, sound bites from a trifold brochure on social media. That's not going to work. It's not going to land. We're going to be wasting resources and time putting things, but like, we got to take the time to do the soft, fluffy stuff to get to the root, figure out the brand and like a real brand voice.
Hmm.
So I think that's amazing when you can get on with a team that is supportive of entrepreneurial spirit and saying, "Hey, like we're all in on marketing and we're trusting your expertise," and they're open to being humanized as a voice on online platforms.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it helps you stand out a bit from others who may be doing the same type of work. It's a way that you can differentiate yourself. And honestly, some of those more human conversations might be what leads to them trusting you to give that you the business in the first place. So that's why I'm always a huge advocate of that. Like you want to like the person you're doing business with.
Yeah, for sure. Now, as a creator, you've successfully bridged your traditional marketing experience with your current passion, which is modern content creation through the podcast. What tech trends have been game changers for you reaching your audience? Are you incorporating AI and have found it impactful? And how do you plan to leverage the digital platforms going forward?
I think the even the evolution of some of the tools, I work very bare bones for the podcast. So even Zoom has recently incorporated an AI tool that captures a summary of the conversation. And so the way I work is I record ahead of time and then return to the episodes as they're airing. So I'll have them kind of in a bank almost and then pull them as I go. And so it's extremely efficient for me to have those notes to remember the conversation and what was the most important takeaways for me. So it's not necessarily that I use the summary verbatim for anything I'm posting, but I definitely use it as a reference point and it helps me be a lot quicker, especially after work, because that's when I'm working on putting these together at night and my brain isn't at full capacity. I think the other thing that's amazing about AI is the ability to help you just from a starting point. Like if you're having trouble even with an idea or starting a thought, or you have an idea and it's like, I want to make this work. Like, what can I do to really bring this to fruition? AI is an amazing sounding board. I use it constantly for like, this is a sentence that I want to like get right about someone and it'll just kind of spit out some ideas and I at least I'm like, oh yes, okay, yes, like that's what I need to just get me moving. And I do that even in my day-to-day work too. It's,
Yeah,
it's made me so much quicker and faster. And I always tell people, I'm like, I don't use it for fact checking ever because that's just
no.
very unreliable, right? We all know that. That's not what you use it for. For me, it's all about efficiency, creativity, and those lulls that you used to get where you feel block at any point. Like I feel like that doesn't exist anymore because of AI. So definitely leaning into that. I also am a huge fan of a platform called Descript. It's a recording thing that's similar to Riverside and others, but for that one, it's great at even summarizing and pulling out takeaways from conversations and things. And I don't always use it, but again, if you're, just looking for some inspiration, it's a great tool.
I think people that have known me for a really long time were kind of shocked when I decided to go into communications once I started my big girl job 20 plus years ago. I want to get into PR and people were like, you hate to write. And I found that my disdain for writing came from starting from that blank screen and
Hmm.
getting analysis paralysis about where to begin. You have all these thoughts in your head. So fast forward 20 plus years as AI has come into the scene. That was huge for me because it's like you said, I don't sit in paralysis like, oh no, that's not what I'm trying to say. Oh, I want to start it like this, but then I can't finish it. And if I can't finish this paragraph, then I can't move on to none of that is
Doesn't
happening.
exist.
We're
Yeah.
just it's at least keeping the blocks from me personally.
Hmm.
So I love that. People are like, you hate to write. And I was like, I do, but then why do I hate to write? Like I
Hmm.
feel like I have good thoughts and things to say, and but it's just these blocks.
Hmm.
So yeah, to your point, I think that AI is like great for that, getting over
Yeah,
that type of stuff.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what's next for Insure? What do you have on the horizon? I know that this is, backed by a mission. Like you said, it's not necessarily to monetize, but what do you have in the works? I mean, based on the goal and the mission.
So I have all sorts of like high hopes for it, but most of all, that consistency is really important for me. I want to keep doing it. I want to make sure it endures. So I think just sticking to it, finding ways to make it interesting. I'll be most likely wrapping up towards the end of the year and then having a little pause before season three. And so I do want to think ahead and maybe ask for feedback about like what people want to hear. I definitely want it to be something for people who are tuning in. Like what are they finding the most valuable or what would they want to hear more of? I've been enjoying the collaborations, so where I can work with a partner on a way to bring a different topic or a different point of view. I've had a few episodes with a group that's for women in insurance, and we've been talking about tougher subjects that are affecting women. So ageism was my most recent one. And before that, we talked about neurodiversity. So it's bringing awareness to topics that people might not know are affecting women around them. And for me, that's another, like a different value add that I can bring to the conversation is like, let's just talk about what this is and how it's affecting women we're working with. And yeah, and I think a lot of people have asked about like an event. And for me, that seems
Mhm.
very big. And I would love to do it, but I'm almost thinking now, I even was just thinking about it last night, like maybe I could do that virtually to start with and see how it goes. But honestly, I just want it to be something valuable is the biggest hope that I have for the future.
Awesome. Well, that wraps today's show. Thank you to our incredible guest, Megan Bell, creator and host of Insure Podcast. We'll have contact information for Insure in the show notes for anyone interested in supporting the show, which, the mission is to advance women's leadership in insurance. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next time.